This might seriously be the best game I've ever played in my entire life.
Elden Ring isn't just the best game this year, it's one of the best games ever made.
Elden Ring is the game of the year and possibly game of the decade if it doesn't get outdone by an Elden Ring 2.
This is one of the best games of all time. Elden Ring isn't just a game, it's a journey.
Is the honeymoon phase over yet?
Adventures of Nyukio Elden Ring review.
So, a quick prerequisite before I start the review, and that is I beat the game, unlike a lot of these reviews that dropped on day one. I beat all the side bosses, about 95 hours or so of playtime, and I am not new to this series. I played every Souls game since Bloodborne, which I got the platinum in and is in my top 5 PS4 games of all time. So I'm not new here. And additionally, I'm good at the games too. So I'm not saying that to flex. I'm saying that so you know this review isn't coming from a complete bomb. I'm not one of these niggas to tell to get good, okay? Now this review isn't going to be too structured, but I'm going to start with the story. So, quick rundown. The story is that Elden Ring is destroyed, and by defeating all the bosses, all balance will be restored, or something like that. That's one of them generic ass stories, right? To begin with, like, premise-wise, right? But you don't have a mentor who's dying. You don't have a village you gotta put on your back and save. You don't have a family to save. The guy at the start of the game starts cooking you, starts roasting you, says you ain't even got any bitches, ain't got no hoes, calls you maidenless.
Unfortunately for you, however, you are maidenless.
So it's like, what am I saving the world for? I don't got no reason, I don't got no nothing, right? But cool. You got all these cool looking, which they, like I said, they're cool looking. You got these cool looking but kind of out of context cutscenes for all the main bosses. And although I feel like this is kind of an easy cop out, I didn't buy the game for the story. And who does? But while on a similar subject, you know, the story, the NPCs, why does the guy who gives you the upgrades for your weapons have one line of dialogue for a majority of the game? Like, he ends up switching up towards the end, but it's like I only got like 20 hours left, and I had to sit through this for the like every time I needed an upgrade or something like that. But he hits you with the same one line. I got so tired of hearing how many times this guy thought I died.
Well, where have you been hiding? I took you for dead. No matter, it's all the same. Lay out your arms then.
And it's a small thing, but the small things paint a bigger picture, right? Like, there's a few small things, I get them out of the way quickly before I go into the bigger issues I have with the game. But it'd be nice if you could disable the helmet visibility so you could see the characters that you made. There's these bug things that show up where if you kill them, they refill your flask. But they show up right after a sacred site. It's like, I don't need this right now. And when you do need them, like, damn, I'm kind of running low. It's been a minute since I've seen a sacred site. They're nowhere to be found. But the side quests are trash. There's no quest log. People are talking about, oh, it's so freeing, I love that, it's so liberating. But it's the same niggas that got 20 YouTube tabs open at the same time, right? So you tell me which is more immersion breaking. A quest log, maybe a little map marker here and there, nothing crazy where it looks like a Ubisoft game. Nobody wants that, nobody's saying that. But that, or having to constantly pause a YouTube video, trying to find where something is at. Because me, I went into this like, man, I ain't using no magic, I ain't using no damn summons, I ain't using no guides. But you cannot play this game like that. I never use magic, I stuck with that. And I use summons, but I only use them in my last 8 hours of my 95 hour long playthrough. And I'm gonna get into the summons in a minute. But those guides, After about 50 hours or so, I was going crazy with the guys. I was like, man, show me where all the mimic tears at. Show me where all the talismans at, the 20% physical damage blocking at. Show me where that boss at. Show me where to get that sword. Show me where to get to that location. Show me how to do that quest. So it doesn't get any more imagine breaking than that, where I gotta rewind the YouTube video because the nigga going too fast and he bent that corner too quick. So people say they like the game because it doesn't hold your hand, but that is complete cap, because they got these YouTube guys holding their hand with the guide open instead of From Software. That seems way worse to me. And like, I don't know, if you played Elden Ring, I know you heard these voices here.
Hey, how you doing? Holmes here, and welcome back to some more Elden Ring boss guides.
Today I'll be showing you all another 6 armor sets you absolutely do not want to miss on your journey through Elden Ring.
Hey everyone, it's Milo here with a short guide on how to progress through the story of Elden Ring.
I've made a lot of videos on how to farm runes in Elden Ring in the best ways possible.
And welcome to today's video, guys. Today I'm gonna walk you through the complete Millicent questline.
This shit got 1.4 million views, and this is just one video I've seen. There's so many guys I've seen, like how to get overpowered in 2 hours. Like, it's like, I ain't trying to hear that it doesn't hold your hand, because I think that's just an excuse for the bad game design here, because you niggas going to YouTube just to alleviate the problem. So let me get back on the story right quick. There is a story there, but it's like these other games. I'm not one of these lore merchants, so I'm not deep diving on Reddit and YouTube looking up the story. If the story is not right there in my face, it might as well not be there at all, right? But let's get back to the guides real quick. So, like I was saying at the beginning, I wasn't using the guides. I made a conscious choice not to. So even when it was inconvenient, I was like, no, I'm gonna stick with it. I'm not looking anything up. So what would happen would be, I didn't know where a boss was, and I'm kind of lost, right? So fine, it's an open world game. Before this, I had a little open world fatigue to begin with, but I realized this game isn't even that open world. It's kind of, it is, but it's more of a linear type. I don't know how to explain it, but the open world structure didn't really affect my open world fatigue. It was kind of different, but I didn't know where to go. I couldn't find the boss I needed to find, so I'm running around, right? I'm going here, I'm doing these dungeons, which are like bootleg challenge dungeons, which were my least favorite part, getting the Bloodborne Platinum, and it made me not want to get the Platinum back then. But I'm finding all these mini bosses, which feel like regular mobs. Some actually are. They have like 3 moves, no secondary stages, very repetitive. I'm doing all of this, I'm like, man, this is kind of weak. I don't know. So I'm doing all of this, and then what ends up happening is, I can't find the boss. I do everything there is to do in this open world. I clear all the dungeons, all the bosses, and I get crazy overpowered. So by the time I get to a main boss, I go straight through him. I don't see all his stages. I don't do nothing. I clean everyone up. So I get this cutscene. I'm like, ooh, it's about to be tough. It's about to be fire. But then I just clean them up because I'm overpowered from running around in the open world. I'm like, man, this shit kind of sucks, but okay. I keep it moving. There's like, I think it's Godwin or something. I like that boss a lot. I'm like, okay, it's what I'm used to. This is that Souls formula. This feels like a Souls boss. I'm feeling this. I'm back on track. Okay, I wasn't feeling it too much at the beginning, but okay, I think we're on track now. But nah, that's not what happens. So I fight him, I'm like, okay, game's picking up, nah, the gameplay loop's kind of cool, I'm liking the visual style, I'm liking the art direction, I'm liking how the armor looks, I'm liking the enemy design. I'm not really feeling these dungeons like that, I'm not really feeling these side bosses. I like the concept of going in a dungeon and you know it's guaranteed to be a side boss in there, but these side bosses, they're not delivering right now. And then what ends up happening is, the same cycle happens again where I'm lost. I get a little overpowered. By the time I find the boss, go straight through him, and it's like, it starts getting repetitive because now I'm starting to see the same bosses over and over again. I'm like, man, no, okay. So then I end up getting to the snow area, and I'm like, I would just watch Solid Rev's video. He was talking about how it gets super crazy difficult here and the difficulty ramp. So I'm like, man, no offense to Rev, but that nigga a bum, man. I don't know. I think, he started playing in the 360. I'm really out here in these gaming trenches. I'm nice at these games. But I quickly found out he wasn't lying. He wasn't lying one bit. There's a crazy difficulty spike. I don't even want to call it a difficulty spike, because I don't really think the game gets any more difficult other than the bosses get more health. You start doing no damage. They start having cheaper movesets. They start killing you in one hit. And I feel like people might say, you know, that's why I had to start the thing off with saying, I'm nice at these games. I'm actually good at these games. I don't think people like to say people like the game for the difficulty, this and that. And to some extent, that's why I wasn't using magic and wasn't using summons, because I like the difficulty myself. But I think it's about people like these games for reasons beyond difficulty. I think good boss design where the bosses are challenging, but they're fair. You just gotta learn it a little bit, try it again, try a different, switch it up maybe. But these bosses don't have any openings. They have like 5 moves. Maybe 1 out of the 5 move sets leaves an opening for you to attack. I'm too impatient. I'm trying to get in there. So I ain't trying to be waiting for this one move to show up so I can finally attack. I take off 200. He still got all this health left. Now I got to repeat that and leave a 6-minute boss fight. It's like, I ain't trying to play like that. I'm not using magic. I'm not using summons. And so I'm like, man, some of these are cheap. I faced the worst boss I've ever faced in this game, in any of these Souls games, the Godskin duo. I'm like, man, this is trash. Like I said, I didn't use no summons. But I'm like, yo, there's no openings. A lot of these feel like bloodborne bosses, but it's not bloodborne, so I'm not getting rewarded for being aggressive. I'm just here. I'm like, man, this boss design is kind of trash. And so I go level up a little bit, brute force my way through some of these bosses, and then I end up getting to the second to last main boss, the Elden Ring Lord, the first Elden Ring Lord, or something like that. You know, I'm like, you know what? This game's dragging. It's been on for too long. I'm ready to be done with it. I want to get this review done. I'm not reviewing the game without beating it, but I need to get this game done and out of the way. I'm about to go look up how to use these summons. So I get the night summon because I heard about that guy. I'm like, yo, I'm gonna just level him up. Let me look up where to get the level, like the little flowers to level him up. Cool, bet. Level him up. Now I'm good to go. Yo, I wouldn't say I was struggling before that. I was probably on him for like an hour, so struggling. And I was like, you know what? I could probably beat him, but I don't feel like putting in the work. I just feel like getting to the end of this game right now. Yo, I clean him up on the first attempt. A light work. I was like, yo, when I did that, I was like, oh, it makes sense. It makes sense why the reviewers love this game so much. Why so many people beat this game. I'm like, yo, y'all niggas are scrubs. How did you beat this? Because the game is a complete breeze, even without the summons, all the way up into the snow area. So I can't imagine how people are getting through this game. So I'm like, oh, I see why people beat the game. I see why people like the game. I see why people aren't complaining about bad design, because they just going through guys with these summons. They taking the attention away. So, you know, who cares if the bosses don't got no real openings for you to attack? They attacking the summon. So I'm like, okay, it makes sense why people was hyping this game and saying this and saying that. But I'm like, yo, you know, there was a little fun in being overpowered and going straight through them, you know, after having some difficulty. I'm like, this ain't enough. You really want to play the whole game like this? And then so I'm like, I just want to try some of these other bosses. So instead of going and finishing the Elden Beast, I'm like, yo, let me go and clean up some side missions, you know? Pat out my trophies, give my review a little more credibility, right? Yo, I started going through these bosses. So I'm hearing about Melina or something, and how she attacks you when she gets health back, and she got this crazy combination that people complaining about. People on this boss for 3-4 hours, clean them up. Yo, I started using the mimic summon. I was using the blood weapon, cleaned them up, and it's like, yo, I can see why some people like who don't like these games like this one, because it made it so easy. I went from being annoyed at how, not difficult, but how cheap this shit was. And the reason I started using the summon is because Derek, someone that I talked to frequently, was like, yo, you trying to play the game too wholesomely. You try and play a cheap game with honor, and I'm like, yo, it's not even about honor. I just like, this is how I like to have fun. I don't like using magic. I ain't trying to use the cheap stuff. I like learning the bosses. I like overcoming the challenge. That's how I like to play. But he like, yo, level that summon up and try it. And I did, and I was like, I'm kind of glad because it gave me a little more perspective on the review. But I'm like, man, this just ain't it. But I'd say my biggest complaint is probably that the game is way too bloated. None of the bosses really feel special because there's so many, and you face them so many times, and some of them are crazily, insanely basic. And the ones that aren't over so fast, you don't see their move patterns because you killed them so fast from being overpowered, from killing all the filler bosses. And it's like, it just makes so many of the bosses irrelevant, and it's like, it just takes away that special feeling that you got from the other games. And the gameplay loop is there where, you know, it's a fun little gameplay loop, and the combat feels, you know, even if the sound design is recycled from the other games, you know, it feels, you know, pretty responsive. It feels satisfying. So it's not like the combat's bad. So, you know, you like leveling up, upgrading this and that. It's got a nice cycle to it, so you keep playing. But the fact that the worst part of a Souls game is the bosses, it's not sitting right with me. I don't know. So I'd say it's my least favorite Souls game. But I've only played the game since Bloodborne, so I've not played not played Dark Souls 1 and 2. I played the remaster of Demon Souls, but that's it. But I'm like, yo, the bosses just didn't feel special. The bosses didn't feel special. Crazy, insane difficulty spike. But if you go the opposite direction and start using some of the features that make it easier, and it's another thing where I feel like you shouldn't have to lean into things to alleviate the bad game design. I shouldn't have to lean into someone's because the bosses don't give me no openings. I shouldn't have to lean into YouTube because I don't know where to go, or I don't know how to do this quest. I don't feel like I should be leaning on these crutches and then calling the game 10 out of 10, masterpiece, one of the greatest games of all time, this and that. And the game's cool. If I had to rate it, when I was in the snow area, I felt like I was gonna be kind of hard on it, give it like a 7. Overall, sitting with it for a couple days, I'd say I could give it by an 8 out of 10, but it's not the greatness people are saying it is. And I could see some people, like, depending on how I'm feeling, I still might give it that 7. I might even give it a 6.5 on some days. But right now, as I'm looking back, I'm editing my gameplay, I'm like, there was some nice moments here. I did have some fun here. There was a nice gameplay cycle here. I liked the armor, I liked how it looked, I liked the visuals, even though graphically it wasn't nothing incredible. But artistically, art-wise, art direction, it was nice. I liked it there. So, but this game, it ain't no masterpiece. People are only liking this game as much as it is because it's dry right now. There's nothing else to play. What else are you gonna play right now? I feel like people are lying. Well, maybe not lying, because I saw some people say, this game is so good, I can't play any other game because every other game lacks in quality compared to it. But I'm like, this game didn't fire on all cylinders for me. The boss design, the small attention to detail wasn't there for me. The story wasn't there. So I'm like, I don't know about that. When it came to The Last of Us 2, that was a game where I'm like, you know, every game kind of lacking in comparison, gameplay wise, this and that. And I was like, you know, graphics, story, whatever. I was like, okay, that was a game I could understand. Everything else compared to this game makes you not want to play everything else. But this game, I feel like I could play a decent game and I'll be like, damn, this isn't really living up to Elden Ring, you know? So that's my review. I'm gonna not make it too long. Just say my complaints or what I liked really quick and get out. Just like I did with my Cyberpunk review, because people said they liked that structure. So I don't want to overproduce a review. But BG backed out, blandrew backed out this little challenge that we were supposed to have for this review. But I still, like, you know, I'm gonna deliver something. Maybe not to the exact same way I would do it, but, you know, something worth watching. So I hope everyone enjoyed. I hope everyone, you know, learned a little something if they didn't already own the game, didn't play the game, maybe they didn't finish the game, whatever it may be. But I'm gonna head out. Peace.